So we got some breaking news. E3 is officially dead. The ESA have made it official that, yeah, E3 is no longer going to happen either the next year or any year. It's completely done. Now, this is something that everyone knew was going to happen at some point. It was inevitable because, obviously, with COVID, that was the first time that E3 got canceled. But then the other 2 years, it also got canceled, postponed, delayed, whatever you want to say. So the fact that we haven't had E3 in any capacity in so many years, it's just yeah, it's really sad though because honestly, like as a kid, one of my dreams was to go to LA and to be able to experience E3. That was a big goal of mine. It's like going to the Super Bowl or going to WrestleMania. Like you got to experience it. But to be fair, over the past, I would say, ever since Sony stopped doing press conferences, it was kind of like a domino effect when Sony stopped showing up at E3. I think it was like 2015, 16, 17, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, Nintendo skipped E3 for much longer, but I think when Sony did it's really when the way that people looked at E3 was so different that it didn't really have as much of a cultural impact on the video game world. It just, yeah, no one really cares anymore. I've always wanted for it to kind of regain its former glory. Back in 1995, the first E3, it was a really big deal. The PS1 was a huge part of the first E3. And, you know, over the years, there were a lot of good moments, like like what Sony did to Microsoft at E3 2013, just dunking on them with the whole always online thing. I think that's going to be one of the greatest highlights in E3 history. But there were also some bad moments. There was the demonstration for the Wii, where the guy was playing the drums. And there was also the whole entire, like, half of Microsoft's press conference in 2010 being focused entirely on the Kinect. And what was it called? Kinectimals? Kinect Animals? Oh my god. That brings back memories. Bad ones. And there was also, oh yeah, remember $599 US? E3 2006? Well, that honestly just there's no way that would have ever been a good moment, and that ended up hurting Sony the first few years of the PS3's life cycle. But eventually they cut the price and they were able to turn things around and actually beat the total sales numbers for the Xbox 360, one of the greatest, I think the greatest console war of all time. And during that period, I think, is when I was most invested in E3. I remember downloading Sony's press conference on my PS3 back in 2010 and watching it completely from start to finish and actually rewatching certain parts of it. Like, I think it had Little Big Planet 2 because I was a huge Little Big Planet fan back then. Also, Medal of Honor 2010. I was really hyped about that game, and that was another big part of their showcase that year. But I think Gabe Newell randomly showing up and announcing Portal 2 on the PS3, that was the highlight of the event. Even though back then I didn't even know who the fuck he was. I'm like, who is this big fat guy that everyone's cheering? Like, why is it such a big deal? And I would also, on G4, I would watch the entire E3 on G4, just spend an entire day watching the E3. They had the press conferences on there, and they also had like everything that was going on the trade floor, like all the games that were being showcased for people to play early. And it felt like a huge event. It felt like a big thing that like everyone wanted to be a part of in some way. Like it was pretty much the WrestleMania of video games. I'm not sure what exactly happened. Like, I'm really not sure why Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and all these companies eventually just said, fuck E3, we're gonna do our own thing. I know there was an issue where they were charging a lot of money to have booths on there, but, like, for these big multi-billion-dollar corporations, I'm sure it was still a drop in the bucket. But if that was really the main sticking point with Sony and these other companies and why they all pulled out eventually, then that's just completely stupid on the part of the ESA and everyone involved in E3, because now they're bankrupt and they have nothing. You know, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to charge more money for the booths. Well, what do you have now? I'm sure it's more involved than just that. There's got to be some other factors that contributed to E3's downfall. I can't really say it was losing interest because people weren't really losing interest until these companies decided not to be a part of it anymore. Either way, it's just sad. It felt like such a huge event, all these companies coming together to announce all their upcoming games, and it was special. Now it's just like, you know, these stupid trailers coming out on YouTube, and it's like, fine. I don't care. Like, I'm not really as into it as, like, when they had the E3 presentations. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you gonna miss E3? I think none of us are really surprised by this news, but for a lot of us, it's still kind of a bummer. And, kind of wish that things could have been different. What are some of your favorite memories of E3 over the years? Let me know.